Good morning, everyone. I have Romina M with me, and she is from Mastering the Law of Sales with her company called 6-7 Radius. And that's a consulting firm that helps companies grow by building one-of-a-kind marketing and strategies with sales techniques. She's also a podcaster, so I always say she'll let me know how we're doing here. Her podcast is Coffee with Romina, a podcast about business and life. So that's kind of fun. And I love the first thing she said to me was she has no filter. I figure we're going to get along great. And we're going to just talk this morning. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your company.
Absolutely. Well, hello, and thank you so much for having me. My company is 6-7 Radius. We help our clients to build one-of-a-kind marketing and sales strategy. I do come from a sales background of over 10 years. I've worked B2B sales, car sales, door-to-door sales, inside sales, so any sales that you can think of.
And you've done it.
Yes. I started working at 13 years old because I'm Albanian, so that's why. But I help my clients currently to make sure that, because we work so hard on marketing, on lead magnets, to make sure we get those leads, but sometimes fail to convert those leads into sales. So what we do is actually build specific strategies based on what services or products you're selling to make sure you go through the leads, decision makers, pitches, and sales the right way. And we actually just got done with one of our clients teaching the whole sales team, and the success of it was really awesome because we were able to increase the the cross sales, and the conversion was able to be doubled. So that's what I do, as well as I'm a podcaster. I talk too much, and I love connecting with people.
Well, I love that, but I think that one of the biggest key messages you just said was in your business is really that follow through, the strategy. Yes. I think that's so key in any business, and even in my own. I always, you make the plan, you have the strategy, you do it, and so many times people say, "Oh, it was successful," but you don't even ask why. Why was it successful? Or it wasn't successful, and they play the blame game. Whether it's on themselves or on this or that, and nobody says why. And I always, build into the strategy of whatever I say we're doing is that follow up. And with you, in sales, whatever the terminology is, you have to have that, follow up or regroup,
Yes.
What went right, what went wrong, what, part of the strategy. What does that look like? Because I think, there's the how to, but I think probably the most important part is how do we do?
Absolutely. So one thing that I want to also mention why such a course and such training is important, because everything is turning automated right now. So like you can buy things online. You never have to interact with a person, but especially after COVID, we want that human interaction. And sometimes we forget that if we put everything in automated system, you're going to be just like any other company that just be like everything electronic is like, okay, like can I match a face with a name? Can I add a face to it? Can I interact with somebody? So that's one thing that it's important, why you should have a face to the name of everything. And the way that I train it, for example, if you go from leads to decision makers, you definitely want to shatter that ice, have an amazing icebreaker. You definitely want to talk to the right decision maker, skip the gatekeeper. And I train why it's important for you to skip the gatekeeper, questions you can ask to skip the gatekeeper.
So
you have a question?
I have a question. I think everybody wants one little tip today, and that's it. Will you give us
skip the gatekeeper?
Give us a secret on how to skip that gatekeeper.
Yep. So before we even
define, and I was just going to say, can you define the gatekeeper? Because gatekeepers look different.
Yes.
Or are different. A gatekeeper could be an assistant. It could be, I like to say,
family member.
It could be a family member. It can be, so often we think in business, it's the person who truly answers the phone.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah, so first and foremost, so the gatekeeper is the person that is in charge of doing the research for X or Y or Z product or services. So whenever you're talking to somebody that is looking to purchase the product, you might be talking to their assistant. If it's for business related, you might be talking to the parents or the kids of the household if it's a household thing. So before we even jump to questions of how to actually get to the decision maker, I wanted to specify why is it important for you to skip the gatekeeper. Because let's say, for example, I sign my assistant and I want to buy a new camera, right? So I'm like, hey, do research for this new camera that I'm looking. Now she's going to give me, my assistant is going to give me like 5 different options. Now, guess what? I'm going to look at the price, the very first thing, right? And the higher price, I'm going to avoid that. I'm just going to say like, no, this is not for me. I'm going to look at the lower price. But I just did myself a big disfavor, because that higher price, it might be 100 or 200 more. It might have additional features that is not going to require me, or just warranty on it. It's not going to require me to repurchase a new camera years down the road. Anything like any add-ons or anything like that. So, and also the gatekeeper is not emotionally attached to the final decision. So
Right.
they're just going to take that information and not really going to think like, oh, how you're going to be able to do it and everything like that. So some of my most important questions that I ask and I train my students to ask is, whenever they talk to the person, are you in charge of the final bill, of the bill, to make sure there is the yay or nay? Also, if the terms and conditions are agreeable with us today, are you willing to purchase the product or the services? So right there and then it'll tell you if they're the decision maker, but also they'll let you know if there's a double decision maker involved in the purchase. Because sometimes, especially on business, you might have a business partner that you need to reassemble everything in order to make the final decision, or it might be a household bill that might be the wife and the husband both together. So you definitely want to make sure you talk to the right person, because before you even move through the process of building an impulse, explaining everything, investing 30 minutes or an hour of your time, depending on what you're trying to sell, you want to make sure you're talking to the right person.
And I think that, especially new to sales,
Mm-hmm.
that is a hard lesson that people learn right away, that they have invested a lot of time to only find out that they are talking to the wrong person. I think that happens a lot when people are, and this is a form of sales, when they're trying to raise money in development. They're giving their pitch on a great charity, but in the end, they're talking to the wrong person who isn't going to write the check or even take it to the right person or make a final decision. And so having key strategies on how to get to the right person and the real decision maker. And that, that in itself is an art and takes time to learn.
Absolutely. And something that I want to add to it too, because a lot of people sometimes they're like, oh, you're not the decision maker, I'm not going to talk to you. Like, no, don't shut them down, because they have a close relationship with the decision maker. That's why the decision maker assigned them the duty of doing the research. So what you can do is, hey, I'm going to ask you. So let's say like, are you the person to make the decision? Well, no, it's my husband, but I'm doing the research. What I would love for us to actually do is have a phone call, all 3 of us, because I want to make sure every single question gets answered and you guys don't waste your time on Google research, but I'll be your one-stop shop. So let's go ahead and get him on the line.
Yes.
He's not here. Perfect. What's a good time for us to actually jump on the call all together?
Mm-hmm.
So this way you'd be able to get everybody involved, and the gatekeeper might be also one of the decision makers, but sometimes they do play that card that they cannot make a decision. They're just looking for information. So also you have to put your emotional intelligence and read the situation at the same time to be able to take charge of the conversation.
So tell me a little bit about what services, because from that comment, it sounds like you teach and do a lot of role playing, almost how to anticipate what might be on the other end of a call, an email. So tell me a little bit about your services.
Yeah, so 6-7 Radius branches out into the sales and marketing as well as into the podcast production area. So we specialize in two of those. Towards the sales, we do participate also with the Negotiation Club, which is a negotiation institute based in London. So we do role plays all the time. We do have cards, and we split the room into buyers and sellers also. So this way we'd be able to see our students negotiate with one another, and then have the whole floor open and be able to analyze the body language, what tactics was used, what was not used correctly, the silence, was it too much silence, like everything to the detail. So we do teach it based on the negotiation cards that we have, as well as when it comes to one-on-one training. For a company, for example, that I just finished the training, I was able to listen to do the QA for them, the quality assurance, and listen to their calls for the last 90 days. So this way I know what's a habit for one salesperson and what's a habit for the other one, because I can teach everybody sales, but somebody might be, 1 out of 10 might be a 9 on sales, somebody might be a 3. So you cannot really teach everybody the same thing because it's different levels. So that's when the one-on-one coaching comes to play, as well as it would be the role plays, or it'd be them listening to me, taking the calls over and picking up one or two things that might work for them. And also you want to make sure whenever you teach sales, don't overwhelm the sales professional, because especially if they're very new, they already know it, that they're struggling. But if you're like, oh, you're not good at this, they're going to be like, oh my God, like I suck at it. Like I'm not good at it at all. So you also want to make sure you use the sandwich CPR towards, the sandwich method towards training them as well. So that's the sales part. And then the podcast production part, we do help our clients to increase their marketing and sales through podcast system. And every client is different. So we strategize it and we build a podcast, the content and everything based on the client's needs and the client's expertise.
Are you finding with podcasts that the amount of podcasts are going up still? I think that there seems to be a lot more and more.
Yeah, so a lot of people also do stop after episode 7, so it's called pod fade. So they just disappear because they don't realize the hard work behind it. Like you have a podcast, so towards doing the ad. So number one thing that I also want to clarify about a podcast: if you have a final product, let's say of 10 minutes. There's minimum 6 times more of that final product that goes work on the back end. And a lot of people just want to launch their podcast. They're like, I'm going to get 1,000 downloads, get companies to pay me for ads. But that's not the only way how you can monetize a podcast. There's a lot of other strategies to monetize a podcast. So a lot of people have this big idea. And then when I sit them down and say, hey, for the first year, maybe, because you don't have a name out there, maybe you'll get only like 2,000 downloads. How do you feel about that? Well, that's not really a good thing. Well, I want to prepare you. That might happen. So we have those hard conversations too with that.
Yeah. So I haven't really said this too much or to too many people, but I do have a podcast, and I think my podcasts are. I've actually recorded my last podcast, and my last one will air in August. And it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to record, just the hour from my day of recording it. And then my unbelievable team that puts together the marketing end of it, the editing end of it, the uploading end of it, the emails. It's a huge amount of time, which is not my business, and I love doing the podcast, but I had decided to stop once they air in August. I think when I'm done in August, I'll have something like 30 or 40 of. I'll have a lot, plenty, as I like to say, enough of me.
In that case scenario, something that you can do, for example, so because people once they get used to a habit that they listen to your podcast weekly, what you can do is every week you can just do mini clips throughout the older episodes and reuse that content. So there's a lot of ways how to keep that momentum.
Right. And I'm a believer in reusing the content, and I will. But I love this platform of the Facebook Live, and that's really what I'm going to focus on. And I started this in the pandemic, which is really what I was going to ask you about. And and that is, a couple of questions with that. Has your business changed at all during this shutdown, reopen? Or is your business more, it depends what state you're in Florida. So I like to say that, God love it. There's no pandemic in Florida. No, just kidding. But, so often we're making a phone call and you hear this call may be recorded for quality assurance. I certainly have participated in my clients having that service a part of their business. So I just wondered how that works, in this time. Have you seen?
My business was born during COVID. So I'm one of those weird business people because I was working as a marketing project manager for a real estate training company, a big company based in Florida. So my main job was to handle the marketing, the newsletters, handle the magazines that we had monthly, the chief editor for it, and also help on reorganization of all the life events. So once COVID broke, there was no job for me. So I got let go of it. So I took all the knowledge that I had from my sales experience. I took all the knowledge that I've been doing a podcast for 1 year, and I went ahead and just launched my own business. So I'm one of the people that had a brain baby during COVID.
Well, that's a good kind of baby. There's lots of good kind of, but that's amazing because, and I'm really glad that you pointed that out because during this time I was on a Forbes Women's Council yesterday, and we talked about, sort of silver linings and how people have transitioned and pivot during COVID and even the outcome afterwards. And you really have what I see as this thriving business that can keep going, well after the pandemic. And I unfortunately believe that this won't be the first or last time that we have
it won't. And here's the thing too, if you're going to leave your business success based on the exterior factors, then congratulations, your business is going to fail because you need to pivot and you need to re-strategize and you need to make sure that your business will be sustainable throughout whatever external factor. Just like I said, build a specific strategy for our clients to make sure that they still resist the time of the change. I had one of my clients, he has no idea how to use Zoom, literally no idea. So whenever COVID broke, that's when we start connecting. He's like, hey, you interviewed me in your podcast, and do you use Zoom? How do you use Zoom? So I did a whole training with him. He still wasn't able to get the whole Zoom, how it works, breakout rooms, everything. So I'm like, okay, we're going to build a strategy that all your in-person events, now they're going to go through Zoom, and let me do the whole back end of it. You just show up and don't touch nothing. Because even one time, unfortunately, he did end meeting, and I was like, oh my God, no. So I was like, you do not touch nothing.
Well, I think that's been really common, of course, during COVID. People have ended meetings, they've ended events. I was on a call one day and we were in a breakout room and we were supposed to go back to the full, and all of a sudden we were all gone. So
one button away.
One button, and but I think that's been the challenges of the technology during this. But I love that you created your business during that. I've been remiss here because I want to give out your website. It is connect with Romina.com. It is in the link as you're watching this so be sure to go on to that link, learn more about Romina. The other thing is I really encourage people, the weather's getting nicer here. We're going to be outside. It's great to listen to music, but for me, I actually love to walk and listen. That's when I do listen to podcasts. Also sitting at my desk sometimes. So Coffee with Romina, a podcast about business and life. So you're going to get some great insights there. And I find it really fascinating to hear about really great things that happened during the pandemic. Because I'm a firm believer you got to really pivot, you got to shift. So,
Yeah.
congratulations to you for doing that. So, see, people want you. They're calling you.
My phone just started playing music out of nowhere. That was very weird.
See, Alexa heard us. I'm just kidding. Anyway, Romina, thanks for joining me today, and stay in touch, and come back on and tell me how your business is growing. I want to hear everything.
Absolutely, would love to. And for you guys, if you want to listen to the podcast or connect with me, it's cheesy, but every handle is connect with Romina. Cannot get simpler than that.
It's simple, and I'm assuming you're on where all podcasts are.
Yes.
I'd like to say where all podcasts are. Someone said to me once, well, where's your podcast? I'm like, where do you get your podcast?
Wherever you get your podcast juice
wherever
from.
You get your podcast is where I put my podcast. So wherever you get your podcast is where Romina, Coffee with Romina, a podcast for business and life is, and connect with Romina.com. So thanks. Have a great day. I love meeting you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Pleasure all mine.
Take care.